All right, guys, Michael Hicks here with Mike Does on the new podcast, Build Unique. I'm here today with Hayden and Nikki from Journeymore. Excited to have you guys.
We're excited to be here.
Yes, awesome. Appreciate you guys coming down.
Oh, yeah.
So the purpose of this podcast is to talk about not only building unique structures and unique homes, but really diving into building a unique life and lifestyle for yourself and your family. And, I feel like y'all have done that well and just wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit and ask you a few questions. You guys ready?
You bet.
We love it.
All right. So tell me, what's your background, first of all? Kind of where did y'all come from before diving into social media?
It's a good question.
Yes.
I'll let you start.
Okay. So, let's see. I gotta think about it.
You want me to start?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah, you start.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So I grew up in Tennessee, in Nashville, Tennessee, and I've always been outdoors. My dad was really involved in my life, and so I've got a great relationship with him. And so a lot of that actually kind of spurred on what we're doing now. Just adventuring all the time, traveling all the time, seeing amazing places.
Now, you were in scouting as well, weren't you?
I was,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm an Eagle Scout, and
Yeah.
so I'm just really involved all through up until high school, and through high school, and so that really kind of propelled me in a lot of the communication skills, outdoor skills, and really just kind of that drive to just do more, I guess you could say. And so going to college, I got a business degree, and kind of coming out of college, I started as a financial advisor and did that for about a year, and quickly was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. It was just not the path that I wanted to follow. And I had some friends that were successful on YouTube and just as content creators. And so both Nikki and I, we got married halfway through my senior year of college.
Okay.
And so we just talked about it a lot, and we were like, you know what, maybe we should just start our own business. Like I could see us doing this, and kind of reaching back to those scouting days, we decided to start a YouTube channel that was based outdoors and doing hiking and just any kind of outdoor skills. And so I would do videos teaching those kinds of things. And then we had a really fun opportunity to stay at a place in Alabama. And it was a movie prop from The Walking Dead, The Hunger Games, and it was a German Unimog, so 4x4 vehicle. And so it's that box on the back that they converted into a little kind of tiny home back there. And they built a really cool structure around it. So it's kind of like a big kids playground.
Sure.
And it was on 105 acres, like beautiful wooded land right outside of Birmingham, Alabama. And it was a really cool opportunity. And so we just decided we were really down there to film hiking trails that were in Oak Mountain State Park down there. And we just decided, let's film our experience at the MOG. And when we put that video out, it was like night and day difference in terms of performance and support and just excitement from our audience, that we were like, okay, let's do unique Airbnbs. Let's focus on this. And so quickly after that, we stayed in a World War II train car in Maryville, Tennessee, and a tree house in Asheville, North Carolina. And everything really from there, it was just kind of like, okay, let's do this. And at the time, I was still working with Northwestern Mutual. That's where I was at. And then Nikki was working for the state.
I did. I went to college to ultimately become a veterinarian and found out quickly I just didn't want to go through that much schooling. So I ended up just getting my cellular and molecular biology degree, and we were
That sounds a lot easier.
Yeah. She's the smart one, if you can't tell.
No, it was a tough degree to get, but I enjoy biology, so I loved it. Graduated, we were going to get married, so I just needed to get a job. And so becoming an inspector, an OSHA inspector for the state was the first job that I applied to and was really interested in. And so, I had that for 2.5 years. But yeah, Hayden comes from, I think, a more entrepreneurial family. And so he had this inspiration to start our own business. And I'm just along for the ride. I'm down for anything that he wants to do. So we started the business. And so we were both working. So I was an inspector, he was a financial advisor, and then we did Journey more like in our free time on the weekends and at night. And then eventually it evolved into Airbnbs, and then eventually we were able to quit and go full time, it's like I completely thinking that I was going to go to school and be a vet. And now it's like we're traveling and doing Airbnb and photography and videography. It's completely different than what I thought I would be doing, but I love it so much.
Yeah, I think scouting drives you in that direction to begin with, the entrepreneurial track and the being outdoors and just experiencing different things. I mean, I went through scouting. I certified scuba diver. I was backpacking and camping, things that I wouldn't have done otherwise.
Definitely.
It just, put me in a different place. And then, I went to college to be a park ranger. And, I made it through a semester and a half. I was like, this is not for me. I'm going back home. And, I started in real estate. And it's just, it's funny how, we place that importance on going and getting that education. And it is important, but there's so many other pathways now, especially with the online presence and the different social media outlets. And it's just amazing that, when you were a kid, would you ever think, okay, I mean, I'm going to be on the internet one day making YouTube videos and TikToks, and people are going to pay me for it. I mean, it's phenomenal. So, going to those unique stays, what are some of the most unique things, and what really makes a property stand out?
Good question.
Mm-hmm. I think, like you said, being unique and different is kind of, it takes a lot of work and thought. And when you walk into a place, I think you can really tell by the architecture that they have, the furniture and decor, the amenities that they provide. I mean, there are so many options. So you can tell, like, when you walk into a place and a host has done kind of the bare minimum, and when you walk into a place like your properties and you're like, this is a piece of art and an experience to have that I'm walking away that I can't wait to come back or to tell other people about. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just like, I think you can tell pretty immediately when you walk onto a property.
Yeah, and I think personally, thinking about the Sassafras Treehouse, something that we love is kind of hearing the history and like what it took to build the place.
Sure.
And so like a lot of the wainscoting, the door at the Sassafras Treehouse, like coming from historical places and kind of repurposing that, it just gives it a little bit of that extra specialness, I guess you could say. And it really makes it unique. And so kind of understanding that and knowing that. And then just the overall structure too. I mean, when you pull up to a place and it looks unlike anything that you've seen before, I mean, that automatically makes you feel like, okay, this is an experience. Mm-hmm. This isn't just a hotel, It's not me just staying the night somewhere because I needed to stop in. It's like you're actually creating something that you can't find anywhere else. And the Sassafras Treehouse is like that, and your container homes are like that too. They just provide a very unique feel that you can't really get anywhere else.
And it makes you walk away feeling like, oh, this was so worth it.
Right. Well, and you mentioned being a piece of art, and that's what it's been to me is, an outlet for creativity. For 16, 17 years, I was just building the spec homes and buying the rental houses, and it just got boring. I mean, it's boring. It did nothing for me other than produce an income, and it was not fulfilling. So you start getting outside of your comfort zone and doing things that are not the norm, and creating these pieces that you don't see every day. It's fulfilling to me as the builder and the owner, and then our guests as well, and just seeing the guests talk about their experiences and share them online it's been phenomenal. You also mentioned amenities. What what are the little things that stand out to you? I've seen the arcades, I've seen the pools, the cowboy pools, the Unimog. I mean, but what little details?
Yes. Okay. So I'm very specific as personally what I like. So I enjoy when a host provides something that like I don't want to just bring along with me. For example, salt, pepper, spices, cream, and sugar, and coffee. Those and we were hosts, so we know that it obviously is an extra expense to keep up with those things, and your cleaners have to pay attention to, restocking those. But it's like, I usually, if I'm normally traveling, I don't think to bring those things. And then when I show up somewhere and they don't have them, I have to make an extra run to the grocery, which leaves less time at the actual place. And so just little things like that that are provided, I love it because I'm like, I don't have to leave. I don't have to go anywhere. I pack all of those, or we pack all of those because we've been to so many places. Like I would say 50% provide it and 50% don't provide it. So those are like the little things that I personally enjoy. So,
and I think when we're thinking of place to place, it's like, what is your goal with the property? Are you trying to create a luxurious experience, or are you trying to create like an adventure? And if you really lean into whatever you're really going for, I think that that's going to create an experience that's elevated above the rest. Mm-hmm. And so like we've been to properties that they have the land. They've got acres and acres of land. And so they've carved out hiking trails. They've made paths down to the river and things like that. And so it really adds to that experience of there's a lot more to do here than just come and see this cool place and then sleep in it.
Sure.
And so I think that's, if you've got the land, a hiking trail is a great thing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you can get land with an amazing view, that's obviously a great thing. And then there's kind of the classic things like a hot tub or a fire pit. And those are great. People love having those things because most people don't necessarily have that at home, especially like a hot tub. And like kind of going back to what experience are you trying to provide? In Winston-Salem, North Carolina, we stayed at an 80s Airbnb, and the host's name was Scott. He's amazing, and he's created probably one of the best all-inclusive experiences that we have been to at any Airbnb, because as soon as you walk through the door, it's in his own house, but as soon as you walk through that back door into the bedroom, everything is all authentic from the 80s, like all the decorations.
So did they redecorate, or did they just never remodel?
So that's a funny question. That's a good question. And I think it's a little bit of both.
Sure.
But yeah, you walk in and I mean, it's just everything. And then the basement is obviously the arcade. And what makes that so impressive is it's the largest private arcade on the East Coast in the US. And so over 125 authentic golden age arcade games. Mm-hmm. And he really creates it as like, I want anybody to come and experience this and have fun. And so like all the games are on free play while you're there. So it's like you get to play and have fun. And so he's really made something that's for everybody, but he's really leaned into the experience that he wants to create.
Sure.
And I think that that's really important too. And then when I think of like a luxurious experience, probably the few that come to the top of my mind, like I love the sassafras treehouse that you guys have made. I think it's very simple, but it feels luxurious. Just you can tell just from the build of it, everything about it is just beautiful. And then like the glass treehouse in Banner Elk, North Carolina. That one is, I mean, the floors in the bathroom are heated. The king bed is one of the most comfortable that we've slept in. And it's got a heater and a cooling pad like in the bed. And so they really lean into like, this is supposed to be luxury. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be better than your own home, you know? And so when you really lean into what you're going for, I think that takes things to the next level. Yeah.
So it's not just a place to stay. It needs to be a step up from your own home. I hadn't heard it. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that is a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
we want our guests to go and experience something that they're not experiencing every day.
100%.
And that, can be a river, it can be the views, it can be the home itself, and it can be, the things in the home.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Feeling taken care of and then having something to do is like when those two meet, like having something new to do and excited, like that just creates, I think, the perfect place for memories to be made and to fall in love with somewhere. And I also think like host interactions have a big role in that too. I love like interacting with hosts. It just makes it feel like a complete experience in that.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think something small that every host can do, because I know not every host can get the property with the view. Not every host can, have the land for the hiking trails. But like, for example, we stayed at a little cabin in Mississippi, and it was real simple, but they decorated it really well. But when you walked in on the coffee table in the living room, there was this little wooden game that we'd never seen before. And it had two metal arms, and you had to pinch them together to try to move the ball up the ramp and drop it into a hole. It was such a simple thing, but I think we played that game more than we did anything else at the property. And it was on a river. Like, it was on a river, and they had tons to do outside, and we did everything. But that little game, it just made a lot more difference than I think they realize. Because you buy something like that and you're like, oh, this is so simple, but we'll put it in here. But it really is little things like that your guest will remember.
Well, they're there smiling and not thinking about other things that might have them, not thinking about the home in a good light.
Right.
No matter how good the home is, if they're in a bad mood, they're not going to have a great experience. But if you put the things in there that will create that good mood, that changes it too. So, I think walking up on the property, having, that good aesthetic feel from the outside, clean and crisp on the inside with those little amenities, the pizza ovens, the fire pits, the hot tubs, those things definitely add to it. You mentioned interacting with hosts. What makes a great host?
That's a great question.
Yes. So many things. So I think, there are some hosts, which I totally understand, that don't, want to bother their guests. And I think that's totally fine. But we personally love talking and communicating. And so I think a great host is just being open to chatting with your guest and meeting your guest and telling them the story behind your build and all of that. That's one of my favorite parts is like when we met you and got to hear about like why you built what you built. Like, I walked away from that conversation so stoked to see everything inside and to stay there and to tell our friends about it. So
yeah. And kind of back to that question too, on a more practical standpoint, I guess you could say, when you're sending automated messages through Airbnb, that's totally fine because that gets your information out there. But like, also send a personal message too, because that personal touch, kind of piggybacking off of what you were saying, it just makes you feel cared for, it makes you feel taken care of, and it really kind of elevates the experience because like a hotel, they'll send you automated messages and automated emails, and so it's like you really want to set yourself apart from just what anybody could do anywhere else. And so just having that personal touch, I think, is a big deal.
I had somebody talk to me a few weeks ago, and they mentioned they were going to start for guests that booked over a certain dollar amount, just like picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, we're so glad you booked." My thought is, why not do that for every guest? I mean, have somebody that's picking up the phone, your turnover team or whatever, and calling and saying, "Hey, we're so glad. We can't wait till you're here. Is there any specific needs? Are there any specific needs for your stay?" And that really starts things off on a high note.
Definitely.
So that's a good point.
Yeah, I love that. And, we're younger. I'm 25, Nikki's 26. And so we're kind of part of that, I guess, younger generation where a lot of people don't necessarily want to talk on the phone.
Yeah.
They would prefer to text. That's not how Nikki and I are.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of people around our age or younger that are kind of like that. But especially for guests that are, our age and older, I think that's super effective. And that should definitely be used. For me personally, I would call anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
And if they don't answer the phone, leave them a nice voicemail. They can listen to it. And if they prefer to text, that's fine too.
So when you're looking for places to stay and create content, are you typically reaching out to the host, or the host reaching out to you? Is it a little mix of both? And if you are reaching out to a host, what is it that caught your eye about the property to make you reach out to them?
So in the beginning, it was us reaching out all the time. But we've gotten to the point now where we are large enough to where we actually really don't reach out at all anymore. It's usually hosts reaching out to us. They found us either through Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok, and they want to be featured and they want us to come do our thing. And so they'll usually reach out to us, say, hey, we love your content. We'd love for you to come. And from there, I usually try to, set up a phone call to talk to them and really kind of go through how we work. But we do still reach out sometimes if we have like a specific trip. Like, for example, we're going to Colorado for the next 2 weeks, and we've really only done places out here in the East. So we don't have a lot of people reaching out. So when I'm looking for places, I'm looking again for something that's going to provide an experience. But as content creators, for our content to perform well, it has to be something that will just like stop you in your tracks when you see it. You're like, oh my gosh, that place is way cooler than my house. That's cooler than anything I've seen. And so I think shipping container homes are really big right now because they're so unique and like it's not a household thing. Most people don't build shipping container homes. They're not living in those. And so it's cool to see something that's not just drywall and wood.
Sure.
And then just having something that is aesthetically pleasing, I guess you could say, something that will kind of fit the vibe or the feel of the area that they're in. So like going to Colorado and being in the mountains, if there's a really just beautiful cabin like that will catch my eye.
So you bring up a good point there. And talking about the vibe and so your vibe is your brand. I mean, so you've created a vibe that goes with your brand. So you don't want to film content that's outside of your vibe and brand.
Yes.
And that's the same way that we are with our builds. We go back and forth like, oh, here's a piece of property. We could do this on it. And Tia, she'll set me straight real quick. She's like, well, it doesn't have a view and it doesn't have water. And,
Yes.
So we got to stick to those criteria. And, I'm sure it's the same way with the homes when you're looking at properties or when somebody sends you something.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And too, like we try to think about like our following and or all our followers and what they're looking for too is usually they want to see really unique places that they want to go to and book, or if they can't go to, they want to see what it's like to be there. So we also want to provide that for them as well as a great spot for them to stop and be like, okay, I want a really cool place to stay. Who am I going to go to? I'm going to go to Journey More and look and see, what my favorite is and see if I can go there. So that's part of it too. We think about them.
I think that's why, at least from our experience, A-frames and container homes are the two most popular in terms of like on YouTube, on Instagram, and on TikTok.
For us.
And it's because they're unique. It's not you don't drive through a neighborhood of A-frames. You don't drive through a neighborhood of container homes. You can drive through a neighborhood of log cabins, and it's probably in the mountains, but it's just having that unique structure is really what we're looking for, because we have to stop people in their tracks as they're scrolling on their phone or they're scrolling on their TV, and we have to make sure that they click it. And so having an A-frame or a container home or a tree house, something that's really unique. And then, like you're saying, kind of staying on brand with us, as we're a little more on that adventure side.
Yeah.
And those are kind of a more adventure feel, those types of places.
I think we'll also branch out outside of those looking places for an experience as well. I think some other people won't do that, but we, like the 80s arcade, for example, it's like that's a whole experience. So we'll branch out and go there. And we just stayed in a cabin that had a ton of like bedrooms and a whole game room and movie theater. And we were like, that's an experience like we would love to have and to advertise to other people. And so I think it's, both the look and then the experience as well.
Yeah.
So
if we can find something, whether it be inside or outside, that will really catch people's eye as they're scrolling through social media, it's pretty much a go for us. Yeah. We're like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
But if you're not super unique with anything, then we might just pass. Yeah. And it's not just for us, it's not for our sake, but it's also for your sake too.
We want to make your investment worth it.
Sure.
Right. So. And so like, if you're going to really push on social media, having a unique place is going to help you to be seen by.
So we've talked a little bit about why you, what attracts you to a particular property and what makes you want to stay there and what makes the property special. But tell us of some of the favorite places that you've stayed to date and what makes those your favorite.
We've been to some pretty incredible places. Yeah. And so it's definitely hard to pick. Hard. I think there's been some that are surprising that we get there. I mean, we think it's going to be a great spot, but we get there and it's like, okay, this is even better than I thought it was going to be. I think honestly, well, I know what she'll say, so I'm not going to say what she's going to say. Oh man, that's a great question.
Okay, I can go first.
Why don't you go first? Because I know what you're going to say.
So we get asked this question a lot from people, what's your favorite place to stay? And we always say like, we love all of them, but like personally for me, I love having fun. And so the 80s arcade was the bomb in my opinion. And it's so hard because, we're like nonstop working when we go to these places. And so at the very end of filming, Scott, the owner, he was there with us and he was like, well, do you guys want to play some games? Like actually, get your hands on some games. And we kind of asked him which one he thought we would like, and we got to go around and play games, and I loved it. I was having such a good time. So I love the 80s arcade because of the arcade itself was so cool. So.
Yeah. It brings back my childhood.
I know.
No, you don't know. You weren't. No.
Well, no. It makes you feel like a kid again, though. It's
even for us, not growing up in the 80s, like we just felt
it was a great time.
Yeah, we just felt like we were kids having fun.
I'm like, I want to bring my parents there and, for them to experience
It's hard,
that.
because, we go through life and things change slowly. Yes. And then you take and look from 2020 to 2022 to 1985. Yes. Like, man, I remember that. I remember the plaid carpet, the Atari, and, it was a blast.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. And we got to experience that, like being fully just like, in that, and I loved it. I think for young people we should go to that Airbnb as well to experience that. So I appreciate it.
And I think for us, when we think about our top places, there's really two or three factors that go into it, and one of them is the place itself and just the experience that it provides. But I think another big one is the host. Yes. And so for 100%. Us, when we get to connect with the host and we get to know your story and you're actually interested in knowing our story and really building a relationship, that really goes a long way for us. And so like we just stayed at the Sulphur Ridge Treehouse in Bloomington Springs, Tennessee, Cookeville area. And Susan was fantastic.
Yeah, I've talked to her a few times.
Oh yeah, yes, she was so sweet, and we just got to connect with her, and it was awesome. And her treehouse is amazing. They've done a great job with it. And so like that was a great spot. I think I'm not saying this just because I'm on your podcast,
Yes.
but I think I always come back to the Sassafras
We
Treehouse.
love that place.
I love it. I love,
Gosh. And the area it's in
yes,
is
and
also
like,
huge.
and from a creator's perspective, when I got the drone out there and I saw how it was built onto the side of the cliff, essentially, like that is so cool.
It took a lot of laying out.
Yes,
I stood up there with the plans for 3 days, just turning. But
and
no,
the
I appreciate
shower
that.
out there too.
Yeah, the outdoor
ledge.
shower.
I have not seen that before. So it's like
Mhm.
you have unique things that you've just never seen like on your property. And I love that. And then also another thing, one of my favorite things about when we met you is we love when hosts like, you know, we love when hosts support us. And so when we met you and you had checked out our channel and we mentioned a couple of videos and you're like, oh yeah, I've seen that one. It just like, I like almost got like emotional. I was like, it means so much that you would not only have us come and create and do what we love and support you, but you're also like supporting us and watching us. Like that meant the world. So like, we love every interaction that we have with you, and then we love your properties on top of it.
Awesome.
So.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and people don't think about the connections, but you know, your network is your net worth, and you know, it's important to build relationships with people that you like to work with, and you know, y'all are approachable, you're very professional, and it's great to work with you. So, you know, why would I not want to build a relationship with y'all? So, you know, it's not a one and done thing. I mean, you know. I'm doing business now with people that I met in high school or younger, you know, as a key clubber or scouter, and, you know, it never ends, you know, and you have that network that you can rely on and fall back on. And that's what I love about, you know, these unique properties that we built is it's allowed me to do things that, you know, I mean, whoever, you know, I'm like starstruck. I'm sitting here with my YouTube heroes, you know, it's like, so it's like, you know, it allows you to do things and opens doors for you that, you know, that otherwise wouldn't have been there. And this, you know, it's been a unique thing for us and given us, you know, financial freedom and allowed us to be with our children and travel more and just connect with a whole other world of creators, you know, whether that be builders or influencers or what, but it's been amazing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I just, it's awesome.
We agree.
All right. So we've talked about hosts, we've talked about check-ins, experiences, the amenities. Let's get down to what every host wants to know about. Cleaning fees and checkout instructions. You know, the guests are, why am I paying a $150 cleaning fee and I've got to take all the linens off the bed and I've got to carry the garbage out? Okay, so, you know, I know y'all are probably comp the cleaning fees a lot or most of the time, but the checkout instructions you're still having to do. Do you see that as a fair trade-off or is it a, you know, what do you what are your thoughts there?
I personally don't mind it. And so, yes, personally, I don't mind it. I know that it helps the cleaners. And because we were a host, like we owned a property, we were hosting, we would clean it ourselves sometimes. And we did appreciate when guests would do a little, like just a little bit of work for us. It just makes the cleaning process faster because we're trying to turn it over pretty quickly. And then it allows us time to pay extra attention to those smaller amenities and those details. So I don't mind it. I'm totally fine pulling some sheets off. It is nice when I get to leave them on. So like the less work I have to do, it's great, but I don't mind it. However, we have had like friends and family members have those complaints. They're like, why do I have to do this? And I sit there and I'm like, it takes like 5 minutes. Is it really, you know, that bad? And also it's like, you provide so much as an Airbnb and they're not like, it's not as easy to be so efficient as a hotel where it's like they can go room to room and they have a cart and it's right there. It's like you have a whole crew who comes in and cleans the whole thing. And so it's a little bit different. So I get both sides, but as creators who were past hosts, totally fine with it. So
yeah, and I'll kind of play devil's advocate a little bit for the guest side because I understand it too. Again, being hosts, we really understand from the host perspective, and then we all understand from the guest perspective because we're doing it all the time. But if you are paying $300 to $500 a night to stay somewhere because you're an upper level type stay, like I understand why people might be upset that they have to not only pay a $150 cleaning fee, but they have to take the sheets off. They have to load the dishwasher and start it, and like make sure all the dishes are clean and things like that. So it's like I do get that to a degree, and I think for hosts, because it's become such a controversial issue amongst guests and just the way that people see Airbnb, I think it could be a strategy that you use now, where maybe you bump your nightly rate up by $5 or $10, so they don't really feel it there. But then you either lower your cleaning fee way down, or you just remove it altogether, or you don't have them do anything when they check out. And then because of all the controversy, when they come and stay at your place and it's completely different from everywhere else where they don't have to do things and they don't have to pay a cleaning fee, they're like, oh my gosh, like this was the best stay ever because we didn't have to do anything. So
I think that's where websites are really helpful rather than booking through Airbnb. If you have your own website, you can just lump it all together and send them the cost, and then they don't even know how much.
And I think people they have more grace when they're working with the host directly.
Sure.
Because they see Airbnb as this corporate giant that's evil and greedy. And I'm not saying that they're not, because they do like to tack on that extra service fee for guests and stuff. But when they're just working with the host directly, I think there's a lot more grace in that of like, oh, well, this money's not going to the greedy Airbnb. It's going to this really nice person that's put together this awesome experience. So I think it's more of, for the host, it's like, how are you going to adapt to the way that people are doing things? And if you can get out in front of everybody else, then you can really set yourself apart and, kind of be that next level stay where it's people like, I want to go stay there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that is, always being adaptable is huge, and changing with the market. Short-term rentals or Airbnb is focusing on unique experiences right now. They've just spent out $10 million to have 100 unique short-term rentals built, giving away grants to 100 people. So, that is the focus. But, looking back to the cleaning fees, I used to be that guy that was like, why am I paying $150 right there? And I'm having to clean it. And, but I didn't realize as a host or as a guest that, okay, we're checking out at 11, somebody else is checking in at 3 or 10 and 3.
Yes.
And, they've got to turn this thing, this 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom house in 4 or 5 hours and make sure they're ready for the next guest. Well,
definitely.
So it's not a big deal to, take the sheets off and put them in the tub. And,
right.
And, we always carry the garbage out anyway. So,
Yes.
we don't want to sit in the house and the dishwasher, load it and start it. How hard is that?
Right.
It's really not, especially that dishwasher too. Yeah. Like I see the benefit of it, because there was one time we arrived just a little bit early and the cleaners were still cleaning up. And so we just waited, and the cleaner came out and I was like, I am so sorry. Like, it was a wreck and there were so many dishes. We did our best to kind of, make it happen and get out of there. So I also think it depends on what kind of guest you are too. Like, if you leave it an absolute mess, it's so hard for them to turn it over in the amount of time that they have. So I think, being a respectful guest is a big part in that too, is just, doing the best you can. And then, just taking the extra 5 minutes and throwing it away, it goes.
You're not going to go to your friend's house or your mom's house and make a big mess and then just leave,
because she's going to clean it later.
Exactly.
Well, she's going to clean it anyway. Why should I clean it?
Right.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Well, man, I've got 5 questions that I'm going to ask everybody, and these will be kind of similar to every guest we have here on the podcast, and just kind of more focused in on you and why and what you're doing. So, the first, what drives you guys?
Good
It's a
question.
big one. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to start or me?
I feel like you should, because he has to remind me sometimes. We're in the nitty gritty. He's like, just remember why we're doing this. So.
Okay.
Well, it's not always flowers and rainbows. I mean,
That's true.
People don't see. The other thought for this podcast was the struggle is real.
Yes.
Because people don't see the struggle. They see you online, and
They see the highlight reel.
They don't see the work that's put into it, and
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I'll kind of start, I guess, a lot more personal. Maybe it's too personal. We'll see. You can cut it out of the podcast if you want. But we're Christians. And so for us, like, just our drive is just sharing the love and the joy of Christ to everybody that we meet. And so, that's ultimately what we're doing here, and just sharing who he is and what he's done for the world. And so having this platform really gives us that ability to, and it's, we don't always talk about it. We don't always say things about it, but just in the way that we do things and the way that we love each other and love others, we want that to be an example for everybody. Sure. But then kind of outside of that, like, family is huge to us. Mm-hmm. And for me, my dad has always been a business owner. He's a contractor. So he's built houses, spec homes, custom homes. I mean, you name it. He's done pretty much everything. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I think having my mom at home and then my dad always available, essentially, because he could make his own schedule, was huge in my development as a boy and then now as a young man. And so that's really taught me to be who I am. And so I want the same thing for our family is we want that freedom, not only for us, but for our kids and our grandkids. And so kind of having that control on our schedule and knowing that, I can be at every sporting event, for our daughter's dance, like I can be there, it's like I want to be there for them. And it's hard right now because we spend a lot of time working. More so than any other 25, 26-year-old. Mm-hmm. And so, but we still do have freedom and we still do make time for our family and our friends. It can be hard sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think what's the hardest thing about it is they don't really understand. Like, everybody around us doesn't fully understand and grasp, because most people they're short-term minded. They want whatever's right in front of them, and that's what they're going to go for. That's just the world that we live in. That's what social media does, and it's really kind of cultivating that in the world too. Whereas I think naturally I'm more long-term minded, and I think that's very rare, and I'm very thankful for that. That's just kind of where I go. Is like I'm always thinking about 5-10 years down the road, what do I want life to look like? And I think Scouts was a huge thing in that, of just having those leaders and those people around me, and multiple organizations that I was involved in school and in college. It was very much of like, work towards whatever you want in life. And having that freedom is ultimately, what we want. And, from a financial perspective too, like just having that financial freedom as well, to be able to do whatever we want, whenever we want. And so, we've had a lot of conversations about this question in particular. Yes. And I think Nikki is she's a little more short-term minded.
100%.
And so sometimes it can be hard, but it's great because we kind of balance each other out, because she helps me to know that, like, hey, right now there's things going on that are important. Yeah. And we need to be focused on those too.
Well, that makes a good mix.
It does.
It does.
Complement each other.
It does.
It's like I don't think we would be like doing this business if it wasn't for Hayden, because he's got that, long-term goal in mind and keeps us accountable to that. And so I'm so thankful that he is just like able to run the business and help me out with that. But yeah, and then I'm like, hey, let's, go do this with friends or family. And so like make sure we get that done. And he loves his friends and family so much. And so we just make sure we make time for that. I'd say time for like us, ourselves is probably what gets put on the back burner the most, but we make sure to do that too. Cause it's like, not only are we coworkers, but we're married. So we've got to try to have that balance as well. So it's
Definitely.
really hard, but I know the more we get used to it, the better we've gotten at it. And we have a lot of supporting people in our lives. And so that is why we are where we are in the first place too. So we're just thankful. We've been so blessed. Essentially.
Definitely. It's such a cool life.
we agree. We're so thankful.
So
We're
thankful.
like, it's a lot of hard work, but we wouldn't have it any other way.
Mhm.
And we try to be worthy of all our blessings.
Yeah.
So,
And there's been times where it's been scary. Where
Yeah.
it's been
Yes.
like, it's like,
Woo.
oh, crud. We've set goals and then we don't reach them.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, well, how are we going to do this?
Mhm.
And I think the last 6 months have been the hardest, but the most rewarding at the same time. And we're really starting to kind of turn the corner of, okay, this can actually be a business. And
So
like,
dive into
we
that a
can
little
do
more.
this.
What made it the hardest, and what's made it the most rewarding?
Yes. So with social media, in any sense, you don't have much control in the way that your content performs until you really build a strong following. And then you've got a little more control. You've at least got one hand on the wheel, and then maybe two sometimes.
Yeah.
And so sometimes things just don't do as well as you think they will. And you've just got this grand idea of, this is what's going to happen. And we're so excited about it. And then it doesn't happen. But I think with the size that we are now, we've been able to do more than I thought we would be able to do at this size. And so just knowing that there's more opportunity, there's just more opportunities than you could think. You just got to go find them. You got to go seek it out. And I think in probably the last 6 months, we got a lot of no's, and that's hard to hear, when you're counting on the yes to make it through. And so we just, no after no, but then, we'd start a relationship with somebody, and, they've got like 5 or 6 properties that we can feature and create content for. And we've kind of also been able to, just as our skills have grown, it's made us more efficient. So therefore we can kind of branch into other things as well. And so, we're more than just making a YouTube video now. We're doing listing photos for Airbnb and VRBO and websites, and we're actually creating videos and content for people's social media. And so it's really expanded into a lot more than just being influencers. And so I would say we're more of content creators. So you've probably heard me use that a lot more. But we're still influencers too, on the side of really trying to connect with our following and, getting them to kind of fall in love with us, I guess you could say. And so yeah, and I think also, when things are tough, and you're working with your spouse, things can kind of get tense too. And like, you have to put your marriage first. And, sometimes you don't feel like you can because you don't feel like you have the time, but it's like, that's what's most important. So you've got to take a step back. And even if that means the business takes a dip, it's more important than the business is. And so I think there's been some times where we've had to do that, and it's been really good. And so, and then, we've just been having a lot more opportunities, and just being able to work with other hosts and do other things. And as we grow on social media, it creates more opportunity for us to work with brands and companies as well to, feature their products or their services as sponsors of our video. And so it's really starting to open up now of, okay, we're starting to actually make a living and be able to provide for us and start expanding the business and really just kind of grow from here.
That's awesome. I mean, at first I can't see Nikki getting mad and getting tense, but
Yeah, Yeah,
She
so
normally does not. Yeah, she's very calm, very level-headed.
we try, but it is like, we have two creative minds trying to come to one decision. Sometimes
Oh, that's
can
hard.
be, yeah,
Oh, it
really
can be tough.
difficult. And then also like finding the balance of it's like, we're married, so we feel more open to say things to each other than maybe if we were just coworkers. And so like working through communication and how to communicate properly and like how to play to each other's strengths and like not tell each other what to do, but to, just encourage each other and, what we are doing and what we're good at. We've had to learn over the past 2 years, and it's been quite an adventure. But I think it makes, in the long run, like it makes our marriage stronger because like we probably have built, so much like specific communication with each other over the past 2 years that it probably would have taken us like twice as long if we just did normal jobs, because we have to go through like high stress situations together. And I think something that I love about Hayden and that we're really good at, I think, is like just not letting a problem sit. We always figure it out together in the moment, no matter how long it takes, and then we can like continue on working. And so the communication is key when you're working as a couple together. And so we've had to learn a lot about that, but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way, because it's like also I get to spend my lunch breaks with Hayden, and like we get to travel together. And if I'm stressed out, he's the one who gets to comfort me rather than coming home at the end of the day and being like, oh, I had the worst day ever. So
deal with it in the moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the longer you're married, we're coming up on 19 years next week.
Oh,
that's
That's
amazing.
awesome.
Wow.
Never thought she'd keep up with me this long. But the longer you're married, you'll figure out the ways to say things tactfully without
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, it's
How not
fun.
to push the button.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And,
We've got a lot to learn, and we'll be 4 years in November.
Awesome.
And so, but yeah, there's a lot to go, but it's been awesome so far.
So good.
This has been amazing.
Love it.
So we talked about what drives you. What is your end goal, your dream? You went into a little bit about why you're doing it, but what is your why? We talked about driving, but what's the end? What does that look like? You talked about 5-10 year goals. What does 5 years, 10 years look like?
Yeah, I mean, we would love to. So I guess when I think of a business, and this is just how a business works, is I don't want to ever be fully hands off, because I do want to be in there and working, and because that's part of what drives it is kind of reaching that success and continuing to grow and continuing to expand. But I want to be at the point to where we can step back and the business still runs and things are still going, and we can just escape from it whenever we need to and whenever we want to. And I think when you're talking about when you need to escape from it, is it's like, I want my mind to be able to just, put it all aside and just be with Nikki or be with our kids or be with the rest of our family or our friends. And so it's really kind of having that freedom in the end. And so I would say, like 5 years from now, I mean, we would love to be obviously way larger on social media. I don't know if we'll do YouTube videos forever, but ultimately we'd love to start building our own just really unique properties. And so as we're going to all these places, we're getting ideas and we're hoping that one day, because we loved hosting. I know, like, Nikki loves hosting. She loves hospitality.
I love it so much.
And so when we owned the cabin in Gatlinburg for the 6 months that we owned it, she just loved doing that and loved talking to guests and like hearing how it went and
make sure everything's perfect. Got everything.
And so it's
they
like
enjoyed it.
Yeah, we would love to own multiple properties and just to kind of get to expand from there. And if we can bring family into the business, that'd be awesome. Like with my dad being a contractor, I'd love for him to be building properties and doing things like that and just really be passionate about it. And so, if we can really get to that point where, we can sit back and we've got some amazing places, some amazing experiences that people just love. They want to come. And, I guess strategically with us building our following, hopefully we can just open these properties and not have to be through a third party like Airbnb or VRBO, because our following's so large that, they come through Journey More to stay at Journey More's properties.
And then also like help our future kids one day too, if they, want to run the business or have a job or need a place to stay, they could stay in one of these places. So, I don't think we'll ever be out of the Airbnb short-term rental space, because
at least from what we can see.
From what we can see now. I mean, obviously life, changes from what we started to where we're at now. I mean, we could be anywhere. But yeah, I think our goal is really just to set up our family really well is what we want to do.
Yeah.
So.
And we'd love to have properties all around the US.
Oh,
that'd be awesome. And to just be able to know like, hey, let's go to Colorado next week and stay at our cabin at the top of the mountain. Or, hey, next month, let's go down to Florida and stay in the beach house or whatever. And then just having those opportunities for like our family and our friends too, being like, hey, like go stay, like let this be a getaway for you, a much needed gift, so just anything like that is kind of what we would love to give back to those that have poured so much into us. Absolutely. But then also just giving back to the community and just being generous too. With what we have.
Yes.
And so
our family has shown us so much generosity, and so we want to do that as well.
So we're similar in the same sense. We want to help our parents and definitely our community, and we try to work with our community as much as we can. The end goal on our end is to to build to a certain point, and then to be able to give back to a different charity every year or multiple charities every year, and just really put out as much a good portion of what we're taking in, and just impacting as many lives as we can. And that's kind of why we're that's our why. But so what has this path done for your family so far?
That's a good question.
I think I'll start.
Okay.
And I think it kind of goes for both of our families, and you can chime in too. But I think our families, obviously, our parents are in their 40s and 50s. And so they didn't necessarily have an understanding and a grasp on kind of how the world is changing, especially for young people, and the opportunities that they have to build a business like this. And so I think it's kind of opened their eyes of like, hey, like Hayden and Nikki are doing this. And it kind of inspires them of like, maybe we should do this, or maybe we should do that. And so I think that's been a really unintended, not necessarily consequence, but like benefit of what we've done. Is I feel like it's kind of inspired them. And even like with Nikki's family, when we were doing hiking trails and that was our main focus, was outdoor stuff, they like bought the hiking boots that we recommended, and they started going out and hiking. And it's like, that's just really cool to see. Like, wow, like we
if it's impacting them, it's impacting other people.
Yeah, definitely. So. And then like I've been talking to my parents about, like maybe we should go in on some property and start building some things. And so it's just cool that it really does kind of bring us together even more so, and really inspires us to be more and go for more, and just not settle for a lot of what most people settle for, of just the standard life. And it's what this podcast is about, is like building unique and building more. And I think that it's really done that for all of us.
Yeah, I have actually a little necklace right here that says Inspire. And I was at a store with my mom, and I was looking at these necklaces, and I got some for my roommates and picked a word for each of them. And so my mom picked the word for me, and she said, I think you inspire people. And this was way before I even met Hayden. And so it's just like funny that we're like talking about that, because it's like my mom writes children's books, and she wrote in there like, Nikki and Hayden, you inspire us, to go on this path, this journey. And so like I love, it was an impact that I didn't know would happen, but like inspiring others. And then also we love to dream, and so I think just like encouraging others to dream and talking about their dreams, even like his sisters and their dreams, because he's got 3, and what they want to do and what they love in life. And so I think inspiration is probably nails it. So.
Yeah, my dad told me before we got married, he's like, one of the things that like you need to do with Nikki is never stop dreaming. Like even if you just talk about it, like never stop dreaming, because really I think that's been so impactful in our lives.
Yes.
Because that's something that I've really tried to be intentional with Nikki, especially early on, is like just talking about, what do we want to do? Like, where do we want to go? Even if it's small things, like, my family went to Disney World a lot when I was growing up. And so we love Disney World, and that's like, I want to go to Disney World with you one day. So it's like even something small like that's not necessarily life impacting, but like always talking about those things and being excited and working towards it, I think is so important. And I think that's what Journey More has done for us and a lot of the people around us too.
Awesome. I love it. So what advice would you give someone that was in your shoes 2 years ago, that was just starting out and wanting to go the same direction, or in any content film, anybody that's wanting to go in the same direction as far as creation of content and going online?
I would say the first thing is just start.
Absolutely.
And like we had a really unique opportunity, we still do, of living in the guest house of my grandparents' property. And that's been huge in, really kind of helping propel us and make some decisions. But at the same time, you don't need that opportunity. You don't need an opportunity like that to build something like this. If you just start and you just keep going, like eventually you're going to learn what you need to learn. You're going to gain the skills, you're going to gain the expertise to really perfect your craft and build something that you didn't think was possible. And I think that a lot of people, they get focused on their circumstances and they just get bogged down by what's going on in life. And it's understandable, especially if there's some really hard things that you're going through. But at the same time, what sets you apart from somebody who doesn't seek out that kind of way of life and building something unique is just the choice to do it. The choice to say, like, I know this is really tough, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Like, I know I don't get to go out on Friday night and Saturday night. I don't get to do this at this time. It's like, because you have to make sacrifices. But, for us, now that it's kind of starting to turn the corner and we're starting to see a lot of success, both, from a following and a social media perspective to like a financial perspective, it's like, okay, I can definitely say that this is worth it.
Yes.
And, with our opportunity, and I don't know if you've watched Shark Tank very much, but we love Shark Tank. And something that they say on there, if you watch, a lot of episodes, you'll see that they say the same thing, is like, you need pressure to succeed. If you don't have pressure, then you're not going to have that push to make it happen when it's hard. Yeah. And so although our opportunity has been awesome to live in the guest house, and we wouldn't trade it for anything, because we love that property. We love being near my grandparents. And it's really kind of much needed at this time too. But like, I think in some senses, it could have slowed us down a little bit, because we don't have that pressure to like make it happen right now. There's some days in the past where we might have set back and, not worked quite as hard. It's hard to say that. It's weird to say that because it's like we work so hard all the time, but it's sometimes that pressure really does help. And so my point that I'm trying to make is like, your circumstances might actually help you. Like the hard circumstances might actually help you and propel you to build a business like this faster than we did. And so like, don't get bogged down by what's around you. Just start and keep going. It's like you'll never be fully prepared for marriage. You'll never be fully prepared for having kids. Like you'll never be fully prepared to build a business. You have to jump in it, and you'll learn along the way. Because a lot of those skills you only learn if you're actually doing it, if you're actually in it, because it's the experience that teaches you. And
can't wait for the perfect circumstance to start it. And like we both quit our jobs, and it's really scary in the world today to just not have a 9-to-5 and go all in. But it's the pressure to like okay, now we have to make that money, we have to provide, so how are we going to do that, make it happen. And there was no perfect time either for us to do it. We were like, okay, this date we're quitting, and this date, okay, I'm quitting. Okay, like
and it's scary to make the decisions like that, but once you do it, it's like, okay, here we go. Let's go.
Y'all really dropped some nuggets there. Don't let your circumstances dictate where you go. But also talking about choices, everything we do is a choice. I've struggled with my weight, and I can look back and say, well, I'm addicted to food, or blah, blah, blah. Or the fact is, I chose to put too much food in my mouth, and I chose to be sedentary.
I mean, it's so good. It's hard.
But now, look, since Christmas of last year, you put that time and focus and energy into the diet or the exercise, and you see results. So you make the choice to do the right things, and the right things will happen. Absolutely. Just, don't let your circumstances dictate where you are. We started out, our first house was 600 square feet, 660. It's a little 2-bedroom. It was $32,000. We both worked. And then, I worked full time at DuPont, and then got laid off there, and then, just worked here and there for whatever handyman I could. And then worked third shift for the fire department, worked third shift at the police department, pest control, welder at the railroad, loader at UPS in the mornings, all jobs that, where I could still do what I needed to do during the day and still have a steady income, because, it is hard to. And then, finally, my boss called me into the office, the last job, the police department. And he said, I think it's time you decide whether you work for Chickamauga or for Michael. And, then I was talking to one of my mentors, and he said, I think that if you look at it, that job's costing you money. So all in,
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. I think something else that I'll say to the question about, if you're going to start, have you read any books by Andy Andrews?
I haven't.
Okay. So a good one is The Noticer by Andy Andrews. And it's just really simple wisdom. But in that book, he says, your own experience is a great teacher, but someone else's experience is the best teacher. And I think that that's so true, because some things you're not going to be able to learn unless you experience it yourself. And some people are just more geared towards that too, where they just can't compute, your experience into their head. But just seek out wisdom and advice from anybody in the field. I think most people, and we've been so surprised by this, is like we've reached out to other creators that are way larger than us, and they've been happy to get on the phone with us or to meet with us in person and talk with us. And that's been awesome. And so it's like, seek it out. Don't be afraid to ask, because the worst thing that they're going to say is no. And
I have a story about, I was on a cruise ship for a real estate seminar. It was a conference on the cruise, and we had just let out of the morning session, and we go out into the lobby there, and there's this lady. She's standing in front of a door, that has a big red F on it. And she's just like, kind of antsy, just standing there and just kind of, and I walked by and I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm just waiting on somebody to come out of the bathroom so I can go in." I said, "Well, ma'am, that's the fire extinguisher, not the, So if you don't know, ask somebody,
Yeah.
If you don't know, ask.
Yes.
Because there are people that have been there and done it and that know and can cut years off of your time
Absolutely.
by just one tip and get educated,
Definitely.
You bet.
Definitely.
Mhm.
And like if, it's up to you, but if they're going to charge for you taking their time, like sometimes it's worth
It
it.
is.
Sometimes it
Mhm.
really is. And it's
Mhm.
like, it may hurt now to spend the money to do it, but in the long run, it's going to do so much for you too.
Mhm. Oh man, like I have an example too. I just learned a new editing trick that has saved me hours of time. And man, if I just would have known that, a
Wouldn't
year
your
or
mom
two ago.
send you that video?
Yes.
Okay.
So a year or two ago, it would have saved me so much time. Well, funny thing is my mom saw this video that had, tips to make editing faster, and she sent it to me. I think it was probably like 6 months ago or even more than that. And it had that exact process in there. And I'm like, if I would have just taken the time
Mhm.
to watch that, I would have saved myself so much time. So yeah, I mean, one tip can save you hours of time. So
Mhm.
Guys, this has been great. I really appreciate y'all coming down. I'm so excited. Can't wait for this.
We loved it.
I know.
Thank you
I'm
so
so
much.
excited to just hear your podcast and listen to you and everybody you have on. And
Yeah.
we just love
This is the
working
first
with you. It's
podcast
amazing.
we've been on.
Yes,
too, so.
yes. This
That's
is
the first
awesome.
one I've done. So
Oh, there
No, I've been on a few, but that's the first one I've done. So
Okay, great.
Yeah,
We're all in
no,
it
we'll be
together.
good. Be good. All right, guys. Thank y'all for coming down. I'm so excited about this. Can't wait to release it. See you guys next week.